Hello, I'm Michael, and it's May 18th, about 10:30 a.m. and had a very interesting day today so far. Got up around 6 or 7 this morning, and I've been getting up kind of early in the mornings for about the past week. Well, a little bit more than 2 weeks. And so I'm here to talk about the fast I had just finished for 13 days with no food and just liquids, right? And so I did this fast, and I want to talk about just really two things: the health and the spirituality. So I did this fast for 13 days, and like I said in the previous video, you do feel some weakness depending on how you fast. But I also mentioned a protein powder that I had used, and I'm going to show that later on. I'm going to show you the actual process I went to put together this concoction that gave me so much energy and gave me such a boost on a liquid fast, right? And beyond that, what I can say is that in the week following that fast, actually about 2 or 3 days after that, I had such a surge of energy that it was unreal. My body feels like it does when I was in my 20s, and I am almost 50. I'm almost 50 years old, and not quite there yet, but I'm just about a few years, less than 5 years away from being 50. And so my body hasn't felt this great since I was in my early 20s. And my mind is sharper, and my focus is sharper, and I just feel absolutely phenomenal. There was some research done by the military where they had special forces trainees where they would reduce their caloric intake or their calorie levels to a very low level, almost like fasting, if not fasting. And they saw that after about a week or two or so, after they concluded that fasting regimen, their testosterone levels went up. And so I feel like legitimate, not just feel it. My behavioral changes, some slight behavioral changes, seems endemic of testosterone increase. And so I feel a lot more balanced in my approach to situations and my interactions with people, right? And so it's been interesting, an interesting ride. And so I am a night person. I like to my peak hour of the day tends to center around between starting around 4 p.m. around 4 p.m. and then I can go as far as 2 a.m. in the morning. And with that natural circadian rhythm that I have, that can make early rising, because I don't like to use the term morning, right? Words are spells, as they say, and morning is affiliated with mourning for death, right? So I like to say early rising, but my early rising ideally would be somewhere in the neighborhood of like 10 or 11 a.m. But with a lot of the jobs that we work, you got to get up earlier than that. And yes, I've had a period of time where I can do that pretty well, but in more recent years, I've seen a decline in that initial motivation to rise early in the day. But now, these days, these past couple of weeks, I've been doing it so naturally. No alarm clock, not forced. I didn't even have to program my mind at night, because sometimes you can program your mind at night on the time of the early day you want to rise. So that works for me a lot. But I haven't had to do that. I would just get this early rise. So exiting this fast, I haven't had encounters with dairy other than my first meal, which was chana masala which has no dairy in it, right? I consulted the gentleman at the Indian restaurant. I had chana masala, and I had dal. I believe it was just dal. It might have been, yeah, it wasn't tomato dal, it was just dal. And he informed me it was just a little bit of ghee butter. But beyond that, zero cheese, and that's not for anybody to like really know. It's just that for me, that was something that I needed to get past, and I've been successful with that so far, right? And so I still make allowances for ghee butter, right? So, as far as dairy, that would be the only dairy that I would allow is ghee butter, desi ghee, right? Ghee, right? But outside of that, I don't want any cheese, and I don't want any milk in any of the things that I consume. So that has excluded a lot of things from the menu in some of the restaurants that I like. But yes, I've seen a very sharp rise in health, personal health. I typically start my day now with consuming some water. I try to stick to that. That's something I should have been doing all along, but I try to be a little bit more mindful of that. At least 4 to 8 ounces of water. I might divide that up because I don't want to drink a whole 8 ounces of water in the morning. That's just the way I am. So I do 4 ounces, and then I do 4 ounces a little bit later, maybe 10 or 20 or 30 minutes later. Then I might do one piece of fruit, either organic mango or organic grapefruit. I like grapefruit. Grapefruit is my main fruit. It cleanses me, it detoxes me, and fruit in general digests in about 30 minutes or less. And so it doesn't weigh on my system, but it puts a little energy charge, a natural life energy charge in me. Then after that, before I'm going to go to work, or before I'm going to just really start the day actively, physically active, I'm going to do the protein concoction that I'm going to show you later on. I'm going to actually show you how I mix it, and I'm going to show you the actual ingredients that I have used and that I recommend. Spirituality. I don't ascribe to any religion at all. It's all spirituality. And I'm not going to go deep. I'm just going to do a little survey, a quick survey. I take a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that, and a little bit of that. That's how I roll. And again, I like to mix it with science. If science can prove some of what I have come across spiritually, then I'm golden. I'm golden with that, right? I'm a huge fan of Thich, Nhat, Hanh. He transitioned out of this existence. I think around this, a few months ago, this time last year, I watched his entire, procession online. But one of his books I really love. I don't have the title right now, but it talks about a great summary of, I believe it's Theravada Buddhism, right? I think so, right? Again, I don't ascribe to any particular philosophy system, but there's some great things you can pick from different ones. And I like the way he narrates the idea of right thought, right action, right character, and so on. And talking about how you take the negative things and how you can reduce the amount of water you put on that, and put more water to water the seeds of the things that are positive, so that they eclipse the things that are negative, right? So when I get that book, right, it's in my Kindle, I'm going to put it in the description so you can know what that book is. Ancient Future, huge book in my life, by Wayne B. Chandler. I will put that book in the description as well. So I learned a lot from that. That was actually the first book a few years ago that really switched and shifted my energy in a whole different direction. This is carbonated seltzer water, organic, and no sugars. The CO2 in it helps increase the oxygenation of the cells, oxygen intake in the cells, right? And so, but yes. So those are two novel sources that I can refer to. Sadhguru, Sadhguru is very agnostic when it comes to any type of religious emphasis. I like the way he approaches things and his approach and his viewpoint on figure out what's inside you. And if you can figure out what's inside you, you can figure out pretty much everything else. So you don't have to really focus too much on the external. I am 100% in line with that. I like yogic practices. My favorite spiritual tradition would be Tibetan Bon combined with Tibetan Buddhism. That would be my number one. But again, I don't follow that, but I do study that, and I get inspiration from that on things that I'm trying to understand in my life and how I merge the physical, the spiritual, the mental, the emotional, right? And keep those things in alignment. So I definitely recommend a study of and an understanding of Tibetan Buddhism from the Bon tradition, and also yogic practices and Ayurveda. So I think those are very key and very rich and useful practical application of spirituality, right? And so Native American and South American shamanism, I'm a huge proponent of that. I did study that for a little while. I feel that shamanism is a great way to understand dreams, to understand impressions in the mind, to understand the journey. You might talk about astral travel. You might look at Don Ruiz, I believe, the Four Agreements. He has some very good explanations there about the world, the dream. But shamanism and animism in general, when we say, okay, how you understand nature itself and how do you source nature to boost this, right? Okay, shamanism is rich with that. Animism from Africa is rich with that, right? If we're talking about African spirituality, the foundation for African spirituality, if you want to use a Eurocentric way of describing that, would be through the lens of shamanism, But African spirituality transcends shamanism, right? And so if you're talking about the Dogon tribe, and you're talking about how you understand the celestial world, you understand the cosmos, you understand the primordial prime creator, and how that relates to your existence in this physical existence, what they say, spiritual being have a human existence. Well, you don't want to overemphasize the human, you want to know about the spiritual as the prime mover of the human, so that you are in full alignment with where you are in eternity. So that's kind of my thought process on spirituality. And keep watching, because I'm going to show you like how to mix this little concoction that combines electrolytes, protein, and essential amino acids and vital nutrients in a clean, unobstructive way in terms of the chemical composition. I'm going to show you this concoction I made that consists of protein powder and coconut water. Organic protein powder and coconut water. And so this is Garden of Life Organic Protein Plus Greens. I've only been able to find it in the retail stores. And what I liked, I studied the different protein powders that were on the shelf. And what I liked about this one in particular was that there were no milk-based ingredients, and the grains and the beans that it used are all sprouted, right? So sprouted beans are healthier than regular beans, as far as I understand, right? And so when you look at the ingredients here, you have all whole food ingredients that are extremely healthy. You got vanilla flavor, got a little stevia leaf extract. I normally don't do stevia, but in this case, you got amino acids, right? So you got all your amino acids, a good allowance of those. And that was a surprising boost for me. And so when I look at these ingredients and I look at what they deliver, you see that you get your potassium, you get your phosphorus, you get your magnesium. And then you got your coconut water, organic, non-GMO coconut water. And this one has 10 grams of sugar, and it doesn't have very much else, but it has electrolytes, naturally occurring electrolytes. And you need electrolytes for your body, no matter what you're doing, right? Now, if you go several days without water, right, and nothing else, or I'm sorry, you go several days with just water and nothing else, your body will have electrolytes in it. It's just that you're going to use up those electrolytes, and then once you're out of those electrolytes, then you need to be careful. But this is 11 fluid ounces of coconut water, and you add it to this protein powder, and you have all of your essential nutrients. You have some minerals, right? Potassium, 120 milligrams of potassium here, right? Hugely important. You got a little bit of vitamin C. You got folate. You got 1.5 billion CFUs of probiotics, right? And 20 grams of protein. So when you're fasting, you don't see your weight decline quite as dramatically with that protein. So here are the different pieces. Now you'll see some cocoa, right? That's something I added after the fast, right? Because I wanted to add a little flavor to this, a little more flavor to this. Without the cocoa, it just tastes like regular chocolate milk. But if you want it to taste like real chocolate milk, right, then you can add some cocoa powder. But basically, you take 1 scoop of this protein powder, right? Just 1 scoop. You can level it off at the top. I'm not I'm not so strict about that. I might have just a little bit less, or maybe just a little bit more, whatever. And you put it, in your flask. In this case, I put it in my flask. My flask has a capacity of about 12 ounces, right? And so 12, 13 ounces, something like that. Anyway, I've had this flask for a couple of years, so I've kind of forgotten what it has. So you got your organic cocoa powder, non-GMO cocoa powder. You take your pick. You can get one or both, and so no added sugars. It also has a good amount of potassium. So potassium is hugely important for health. Avocados has a lot of potassium, for example. So that's one of the reasons I've chosen avocados. So I take, you're supposed to do 1 spoonful of cocoa powder, but I did 3, right? Because I do like chocolate, right? I just have to find ways to do chocolate with naturally occurring sugars as opposed to processed sugar, right? So that's what the coconut water in this case delivers. It not only delivers electrolytes, but just enough sweetness that you don't break ketosis and you don't, overwhelm the system with so much sugar. It's just enough sweetness. And so I pour that in there. And again, the cocoa powder is optional. It's optional, right? And what I like to do now is I like to take a spoon and what I do what I call pre-stir it. I like to pre-stir it because what I'm going to show you after this stirring is the most important part of putting this together. But first, I'm going to take the spoon here and I'm going to stir up these ingredients just to loosen it up just a little bit more for what I'm going to do in the next step. So when you add the cocoa powder, you do get some clumping, right? Without the cocoa powder, you don't have very much clumping, if any clumping at all, when you're using this real smooth, finely granulated protein powder, right? So then I got that, and so here comes the most important step, especially when I'm using a flask like this, and I don't want to get ingredients or byproduct on the lid, on the underside of the lid. So I use a Ziploc bag, right? Well, not the brand Ziploc, but I'd like to just call them Ziploc bags, but the sealable bags. And then that creates a very tight seal. So, and then I put the cap on it and I shake it up, about 13 times or more. and I shake it up really good, and I then try to shake it in a spiral, because that spiral puts energy into it, right? Puts a, not just physical energy, but spiritual energy into it. You try to get that spiral shake as well. So then once you got it shaken up really well, then you unscrew the cap, and you just remove the plastic covering, right? And then you'll find that the consistency is the consistency of just almost close to water, right? It's just pretty much water consistency at this point. And then I like to go in and stir a little bit more, get things going again, right? And then what I'm going to do here, just to kind of show what the consistency looks like, because I just drink it straight up after this pretty much, but I want to show you what this consistency looks like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bowl, and I'm going to pour some of it in the bowl so you can kind of see what the consistency looks like afterwards. But by this time, after I've stirred it around just a little bit and scraped the insides and make sure that nothing was sticking to the bottom, right, then I'm going to just going to drink it up and then wash out the flask and move on. But let's go ahead and pour it into this little bowl, just a little bit of it, because I'm going to pour it right back in the flask. I'm drinking all of this. That's what the consistency looks like. Basically, you have a super healthy alternative to chocolate milk, or a vanilla shake, because the protein powder in this case is vanilla flavored. So you can either go vanilla shake or chocolate shake, or whatever you want to call it. I call it the chocolate milk alternative. That's extremely healthy, extremely good for you. And by my feelings of my own body, knowing my body, I could have gone several weeks on this alone. Several weeks on just that alone. So I've drunk it up. It was good. It was good. So, and that is what I drink to start out today. On the very last day of the fast, I took some Hirataki powder, right? I took some Hirataki powder and mixed it with 8 ounces of distilled water, right? And this Hirataki powder is a good cleanser. Absolutely phenomenal cleanser, right? I used to take capsules from the same brand in this case, but I decided to go with the powder because I ended up where I didn't want the capsules and have to wait for, to go through my system. I wanted immediate effect in my system. So, and I was breaking the capsules. I was like, if I'm going to spend all this time breaking capsules to get the powder, I might as well just go and buy the powder. So I use distilled water. Spring water is a great way to go. After I've used up this, I'm going to switch to spring water.